Belizean.
Tell them that we bonded.
Yo bande, yo bande.
Tell them that we bonded.
Yo bande, yo bande. I am a true Belizean.
Tell them that we bonded.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we bonded.
I want you people to understand.
Good night, everyone. My name is ARIA LIGHTFOOT. Welcome to the Naval String Connections on XTV and Creme Radio. Tonight, we're going to be joined by Coach Greg Myers, who is driving right now to Philadelphia, and we really appreciate his time. Tonight, our host, Bilal Morris, is going to be joining us shortly. He should be logging on shortly. And also our producer is Noor Mohammed. And of course, behind the controls is Harlan Wagner, our technician. So with that being said, Greg Myers is no stranger to Belize. He has been very strategic and instrumental in the track and field environment. And recently, there was some controversy regarding the Athletic Association in Belize. And also right now, he's moved on. He's a coach, and he is actually involved in coaching in the United States again. And he's heading off right now to a major competition that one of his athletes qualified for. So with that being said, welcome tonight and welcome, Greg Myers. How are you doing?
Good night. Good night. All is well. All is well. How are you?
I am well. So could you basically tell me a little bit about what's going on right now? Where are you headed? You're driving? You're physically driving right now to Philadelphia.
I'm physically driving, so sometimes don't practice what you see, right?
What highway are you on in the United States?
I have just crossed into Georgia. I'm on the way to Philadelphia. I'm gonna pick up my son in Atlanta and then continue on. I have a very busy schedule, right? I have Hawass Mahia, who is training in Florida with me, preparing to go to university next year. I have a high school team that I was pried out of coaching retirement to take over here in Gageville once I moved here finally in August. And then I also have a young man, Naaman Sutherland, who is in at St. Elizabeth's Tech in Jamaica, St. Catherine's, Jamaica. And
Okay.
he is in Philadelphia right now with his team, who has qualified for the Championship of America in the 4x4. So I am on my way up there to support him, and also Brooklyn Little is jumping at the Penn Relays. A few other young, aspiring, hopefully representees for Belize. I'm going to speak with them and their parents. So my work never stops. To build the sport, irregardless of the roadblocks that we may have and will continue to have until there is some intervention, right? And that's what we hope for. So
just to go back a little bit, could you just tell us a little bit about the name of the competition you're headed to, and what is that competition exactly?
Okay, it's the Penn Relays, which is the biggest high school meet in the entire world. All teams from everywhere, high school teams from across the globe, come to the Penn Relays, from England, Scotland, Australia, Jamaica, Bahamas, Grenada, even Belize. There's a team from Stanford that is there.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and they've gone since 2019 or 18, I believe. And there's teams from everywhere. Regarding the team from Belize, that's a whole different topic, but possibly we'll get into that tonight. But
Okay.
the point being is that it's the biggest high school competition in the world, and it shows you where you measure up, right? The ultimate goal for a high school athlete or team is to qualify for the Championship of America. That is the finals of this meet, and it is very, very, very difficult. to qualify. I myself have over the years 15 or 20 teams that has qualified for the Championship of America. And most coaches and most teams have never qualified a team for the Championship of America. It is exceptionally difficult, and it's typically the same teams year after year. The only reason my team right now is not there is most Florida and Texas teams are not able to compete in the Penn Relays due to our state championship series has begun. Once it has begun, we're not allowed to compete outside of the state. So otherwise, my girls team would have most certainly qualified for the Championship of America in the 4x1 and the 4x4.
What does the Championship of America, or do colleges recruit from these meets, or
yes.
are these athletes go on to be Olympic runners?
Absolutely. So typically, the teams that qualify for the Championship of America are the most highly recruited athletes at any games. So one of the things that I do when I go there is most of these college coaches I've either coached with, coached against, or competed against at some point in time in my life. So I have a very good relationship with a lot of them. And in fact, you have two Belizean coaches that are coaching there right now. Jihad Jones, which is at the University of Buffalo, and Kawan Lovelace, which is at St. John's University in New York, both of which are coaching at the Penn Relays right now. So when we go there, it's an opportunity for us to showcase the talents that we have. Me as an opportunity as a coach to communicate with these coaches about the young people that we have. And like this young man, Norman Sutherland, who is competing with St. Elizabeth's Tech, I am able to, hey, this young man, first year in Jamaica, first year in high school, and keep your eye on the young man, right? So that way we start establishing relationships. But to answer your questions, yes, I would say about 35% of all the major universities are there at the Penn Relays this weekend. It's an event where you're competing in front of 60,000 people. It is the largest track meet in the world.
Okay, amazing. And what are you currently doing now in Florida? Like, what are some of your responsibilities now as a coach?
I am the head coach for Buchholz High School in Gainesville, Florida. We won the state cross country championship. My son Dimitri is on that team. We are currently ranked number 2 distance team in the entire state. Our girls sprinting team is arguably in the top 3 teams in the state. We recently qualified for the Florida Relays 4x4 final, which is probably going to be harder to compete than the Penn Relays is. So our girls team and boys team is, I would argue to say, exceptional in terms of competitiveness. And the boys distance team was always competitive, but the sprinters haven't. Since they brought me on in December, they've turned the program around. So it's kind of a testament to the things that I've been preaching in Belize, that, given the opportunity, if you're willing to listen, we can help you get to where you want to be. And I'm not the only coach that can do it, but we've all been turned away, everyone.
So speaking about Belize, because there was recent controversy, and the controversy seemed to be reported without details. And what I'm saying is no real detail was given, just that there was a disagreement and an ouster. And I would like to get at least your perspective regarding Belize. For example, what was it like to try to do something different in Belize, and how do you feel it was received?
Well, to do what I do in Belize is not very difficult. What it requires is collaboration. Unfortunately, though, the type of collaboration that's needed requires some humbleness, understanding that there is another way to do things, and the things that we have been doing in terms of Belize for the past 50, 60 years no longer works. we have zero to show, right? You have small islands of 30,000 people like St. Kitts and St. Lucia and all of these small countries, which we have towns and cities bigger than, competing on a much higher level than us. So something has to be different. So my experience leading up into the, I fought the fight. I pushed to get a foot in the door, finally get my foot in the door. And the words that caused us issues are accountability and transparency and following the rules, right? When we say we want to be compliant, that's when everybody starts getting upset. So to make a really long story short, why did they push us? When I say we, I mean myself and Jack Smith, who was in April of this time last year elected as president. The same two words, accountability and compliance. People, I don't want to say the powers that be in really all the associations, accountability and compliance is not something that is well received. Why? Because it means that once we do those things, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard and be able to foresee what's required in order to really help the young people of Belize. If this is our goal to uplift our country, we have to have foresight. So
in your opinion, just to go about the discussion, and I know there were some legal issues regarding everything that went on, because there was reputational potential damage that was taking place. In your opinion, and I just asked this because just Belizean American, a lot of times people feel like Belizean Americans are too pushy. They know it all, and I'm just saying it that way. They don't see it as you come with a very high level of qualifications and skills. It seems, and I could be wrong, but it seems that we're always willing to tap into other talents that are non-Belizean. But when it comes to our own Belizean, it seems that we're not open to the advice and the professionalism and the expertise. Is that your experience when you were involved with the board?
well, Maria, I could not agree with you more, because that's exactly the issue. And that led to other things. So they take my stern, follow the rules, this is what we need to do, compliancy, or they would say I'm pushy or arrogant or whatever. The rules are the rules. If you want to accomplish something, well, we have to stop talking about it and make we do it. So to circle back to why. So when we say those things, we have to be compliant. We need to get this done. We have to get this done. Jack did a phenomenal job of trying to surround the association and its things with people who are go-getters, right? Get this done. And the persons that were in there, they take offense to it, right? We need to get this done. We don't have time to wait around for you to decide to do it because your feelings are hurt because Coach Greg said something to you that hurt your feelings. It's the truth. If you can't bear the truth and we're telling you something, that's not a me problem, that's a you problem. But here in Belize, we take that and we don't want no part of that, none of that. So now you get persons inside the association who, and in the last 2 or 3 years, I've uncovered a lot of things that are highly inappropriate and unethical. So we wondered why we are getting pushed out. To circle back to what you said, why, and I kind of was trying to preface some of it before I put out some information that is very damning and detrimental to many different institutions within Belize. There's an individual we were getting ready to send to games, and I'm not going to use the athlete's name, but we were in a situation where we had to ask for people's passports because there was issues and ongoing problems where persons were representing countries that were not eligible to. So it was asked to us to go and verify that each individual athlete is eligible to represent the country. In that process, this particular athlete parent sent us identification, which said clearly, I believe social security card, which clearly said American. So we said, well, we need something to provide proof of visa and citizenship. And the parent refused. And every attempt we did to try and have this person send us information, and was pushed back to the point where this person now started saying that she was going to call for the resignation of Kojak Smith because we're targeting her. Now, I start wondering why. This is a person that was our supporter. So it turns out that this person is not a Belizean citizen, has no ties to Belize whatsoever. Her name is Vernell Sylvester. She has no ties to Belize whatsoever. She came here in 2019 on a CARICOM work permit and claiming that gave her the authority to represent Belize, which it does not. We clarified that with World Athletics, with our local NACA, which is our local parent body, and she shouldn't be representing Belize. In turn, she gathered her supporters within Belize on the ground and called for our removals. So as this process was going on, Kojak and I had discussed, why did this person change on us so quickly? Well, there had to have been something that they were hiding. And just like Dion Sutherland prior to, he had a lot of things to hide, such like $25,000 Belize, which he cannot explain where it went to.
I won't get into name calling or accusing anybody of any type of allegations.
Oh, it's not allegation. We did our internal investigation.
I agree, but it hasn't been reviewed by anybody else. So it's not something that you want to create further problems. But we can discuss the issues without actually calling their names.
Well, no problem. Well, this individual, when it turns out, we wondered this person has not ever gone to America to go see their child compete. So we want to know why these persons are pushing back and why our associations are bad, why our associations are not making progress, because we're being led by persons who have alternative agendas. So we're always saying we're here for our grassroots kids, and we need to find a way to give them an opportunity to compete internationally and nationally and raise their level of success. But when we have persons who are stealing, because that's what it is, stealing the opportunities by falsely representing that they are Belizean and getting the resources and trying to get Olympic solidarity money, and they're not Belizean, and pushing the powers that be, when these powers that be don't know who they're dealing with.
So what did you think about, I don't know if you heard when the new Minister of Youth, the junior minister, who is a young man, uncovered that a lot of the budget within the youth, and I know one is a board, one is a ministry, but it uncovered that a lot of the funding were going to salaries and not to the actual athletes. Was that something similar that you thought was going on at this organization, that they also were not using a lot of the money for the development of the sport?
So it precisely. So a lot of the money was being misappropriated and essentially money laundered, being spent on putting personal loans to persons. In November, our bank account was frozen due to the legal issues within the association. A motion was made to the court, which was later withdrawn, but it was too late, to release those funds. This association squandered $54,000 in 6 months, less than 6 months, to the point where they had no money to send Norman Sutherland and my son to Carifta. The reigning champion didn't get to go to Carifta because they owe me $16,000 because I supported the association for the last 2 years. So would you say they were spending on salaries? No, they spent on things I have no idea. And yes, part of it was salaries because you're paying the coaches on the ground in Belize and they're showing you no results. What results have been shown from that? So why are we paying money to coaches when Kojak and I had plans and we had a clear guiding plan to work within the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Sports to bring in 3 of the best coaches from Jamaica to coach in Belize? But no.
So I have a question. How are these board made up? Like how do
it's elected? So we were elected onto the association. But our
for the members that do the election.
Kojak Smith was elected president in April. Alvin Tillett was elected vice president. Kimberly Casimiro was elected general secretary. Right? Those are the persons who were essentially, I was the public relations officer. And these are the things, those are the persons that essentially make the decisions and move the association. No, decisions are made based on a vote. The president is supposed to have a certain authority and autonomy to make certain decisions, but as major decisions are to be made by vote. So when we go circle back again, so how is this thing? Sometimes you have people pulling strings and pushing, and this individual, the same one we were talking about it earlier, is pulling and pushing the strings, but this is a person who's been deported from America for identity theft and check fraud. And this person is in charge of IT at University of Belize. But these are the people that you're falsely representing that you're a Belize citizen so that you could get your child to do X, Y, and Z within it so you could get Olympic solidarity and everything else. But when it comes to the people that are actually spending their own money and time to uplift the youth of Belize and get them out, you're the prime person out there trying to push everybody out to support your own.
So the last I read, because I did go read up a little bit on it, the last I read was that there was a attorney letter basically stopping, like putting a pause on some of the releases. What is the outcome of that since then? I mean, has there been a resolution?
Say it again. I didn't hear that part. Sorry.
The last I read, I did read up a little bit on the controversy. The last I read, your attorney wrote them a letter that dealt with reputational damage. Has there been a resolution since then? What has happened since all this controversy has taken place?
They filed an emergency motion with the court to release the funds so they could send a team that they claimed was mandatory to go to the U13, U15 games in Nicaragua. While it's important to attend those things, if you don't have the funding for it and there's no budget for it, we can't do it. We have a mandatory, we have to attend 1 international games in order to stay compliant. Again, the compliant thing. But to try to appease these persons, they went to the court, falsely represented themselves to get an emergency injunction. They got the emergency injunction. When it was our time to be heard in court, Kojak and I, they withdrew the case. But the damage was done. The account was unlocked. They spent all of the money. If I am correct, I think there's only like $2,000 left in the account. $54,000 was in there in November.
What is the yearly budget, and what does, in other words, where does the money source from originally for the organization, and what is the bulk of the money normally spent on?
So we get a $15,000 US grant from World Athletics annually, so long as we fill out our paperwork. And
I
after that,
think
say again.
we lost you just for a couple seconds there.
Oh, sorry. So we get a
Last I heard you got 15,000 US grant
US from World Athletics. Uh, NOC supplements by helping with certain games, anything that has to do with the Olympic movement, such as like Pan Am Games or so on and so forth. They provide all the funding for that. Then we go to Sports Council and we get some funding from Sports Council, albeit very minimal, and I would say no more than maybe $5,000 or $10,000 for the year. Everything else we must fundraise for. Whether when we put on a meet, the funds that come from that, and dues, membership dues annually, that's pretty much where our entire budget comes from. It is not enough to do the things that is necessary to operate.
And I have a question regarding like what sports are you guys responsible for? Because there's so many different sporting boards. There's one that deal with football, right? There's that organization. There's Sports Council. Like, why all these different boards? Are they specific to different sports?
Athletics is just athletics, track and field. That is it. That is what we are responsible for.
So that's it, just track and field.
Athletics, Leeds Athletic Association is the member association that is aligned with World Athletics. The Athletic Association's main responsibility is to develop the sport within the country and to host and make decisions on the athletes that will represent the country internationally for World Athletics. For track and field. It is essentially an administrative goal is not to put on track meets and coach the kids. That is not what it is intended for. But that is what is being used as a track club. And that is why we are not making any kind of progress, because there's no development in whether it's coaching, and there's no development work where it's called athletes. There's, in my opinion, almost zero. In fact, it's setting kids back instead of putting them forward.
Yes,
Bilal?
greetings everybody, and sorry to be coming in late, but I'm enjoying the conversation. Thank you, Aria, for kicking it off, because you asked all the right questions to Greg. The issue of Belizean sporting associations and the corruption that has havoc the entire nation, from ball to basketball to cycling to athletics. Coach Greg Myers is rightfully asserting here. And we remember you're being a guest, Greg Myers, at the Belize Diaspora Summit. And alongside you had members from the Belize Sport Council. And it was a very good sight to see. And there was hope there, because there we see the summit hosted, that panel had hosted sports in Belize and where it's going. And we saw all you great minds coming together from the Belize's sporting councils. And that your group, your elected and was putting in a breath of fresh air into athletics, because athletics has not given its it has always been in the background of football and volleyball and all the rest, and cycling. And I think that you coming in as a coach that has produced results, putting up your own son, Dimitri Myers, the two-time Carifta 1500 champion, and to see that he was not present at this Carifta Games was very discouraging on the part of Belize, because he brought Belize as a Belizean in the diaspora, as a Belizean athlete representing Belize, He brought Belize to the world, to the Caribbean, as one of the best. And Belize have very, very excellent talent. But I want to get from you, um, why is it that your council was ousted in the whole face of the Ministry of Sports, in the whole face of the Belize Sport Council, when some of those very members sat with you on that panel and made like a pledge that we are a welcome body. Um, why is it that during your ouster, your council's ouster, that none of these, the Sports Council or the Ministry of Sports, never intervened to say that this is wrong, that the process of the elimination that you all went through was wrong? Explain to me, if you may, why haven't the other bodies, mainly from the Ministry of Sports and the Sports Council, why haven't they intervened in this recent ouster of your council?
Well, you are spot on. I can't speak for what the previous Minister of Sports had on his agenda. Maybe athletics wasn't a big enough reason to step in. Same thing with the Sports Council. It's the same thing. Nobody's willing to get their hands dirty to fix a mess. Me, I have no problem telling anybody exactly how I feel. One, two, it's the truth. If the truth is the truth, the truth is the truth. And the minister, and I hope the new minister of sports is listening, or the deputy minister, has the authority from the Sports Act to step in and form a tribunal to oversee any kind of behavior within the associations, because he is directly responsible. While the minister can't go in and tell the association, you have to go send this kid to the Olympics or so on and so forth, they can oversee national authority and compliance. And it would be very simple to see that what happened with us was nowhere near constitutional. But because the powers that be, I am not going to invest $50,000 in an attorney to fight something for 4 years, and the next Olympic cycle will have already come and gone. That doesn't make any sense. Minister could step in immediately and rectify that situation with his tribunal. So, in my opinion, why did they push me out? Why? Because compliance and accountability. People that were going to be found in non-compliance rallied the troops to ensure that we weren't going to be there. The persons there that were resigned prior to Mr. Smith Jack Smith winning the presidency. Those are the ones in the background still prying and pushing, right? There's way too much unethical behavior. The same things that they have accused myself and Kojak of, the exact same things, are the same things they're all guilty of.
So
As you know, recently, the Mexican authorities, sports authorities, came to Belize and they did a survey of the Marion Jones and the Mexican Center, that to Belize as a facility, development of young people in Belize itself. And they had to, in a way, insult the Minister of Sports and ask how come this facility has become so deteriorated. It was a shame. They was talking directly to him. I saw the whole meeting, and I don't know if you had seen that yourself, right? Where these sporting authorities came from Mexico and they had a whole, they gave them a tour, but their most important thing was to visit that sporting facility, the Mexican Sporting Center there near the Marion Jones Sporting Complex, which again is a shame in terms of Belizean sports, and how that whole stadium has deteriorated with during that whole tenureship of the government and the Minister of Sports. And that Mexican official had to ask the Belizean Minister of Sports. Why is it that this facility has has been this deteriorated like that? Apparently, it had got affected by a tropical storm in Belize, but it was a shame to see that no maintenance was going on, and this falls directly on the Minister of Sports, and it was on national television, and all Belizeans saw that. It's a national in terms of how sports has become. And then comes, I just have to give that as a parallel to show. And there are many others like you, that many other cases not given the proper attention and media exposure that are happening in football, that are happening in cycling, that needs to come to the public's view. But it is very important that you were able to come on here and to shine some light on what is going on inside the Belize Athletic Association, and to see that the good job that you guys had done in terms of elevating sports athletics to
Well,
such a excellent level.
well, for your parallel, we were given this sports center to uplift as a tool to uplift sports in Belize and the youth that sports in Belize. What did I bring? My suggestion is, listen, we have absolutely world-class talent right now that could represent Belize. Brittany Brown is a Belizean. She was in the Olympic final for the 100. Kendall Ellis, she was a world silver medalist. She's Belizean. Jasmine Reed,
Even Marion Jones.
Marianne Jones. Then you have Jasmine Reed, who went to University of Oregon, 2278, was in a world championships qualifier, turned away. Most recently, young man Dennis Phillips from University of Texas San Antonio,
Colin Simplis.
Alan Simplest, but he's basketball, right?
But he's a trainer. He's a trainer that could
He's
teach
a
them
trainer.
the fundamentals.
Right. But I'm talking just in track and field. In track and field today, right now, there's enough young Belizean athletes that could represent us at the Olympics. But why will they not, and why have we failed to get them to compete for Belize? Because we cannot get organized. We have no authority, we have no compliance, we have no accountability to bring them home.
Well, Greg, part of Belize's issue, I think, is we treat boards as a gift to cronies. It's our downfall. Both political parties do it. They sit on boards, they get a board payment, and a lot of them are not there to actually build or even know how to build or organize, as you would say. And so what we've seen is we keep getting the same results with poor sports performance when the athlete is coming out of Belize. The minute you take those athletes out of Belize and put them in a professional setting, you start seeing Belizeans starting to perform. And so listening to this new young Minister of Sports, I'm hoping that he understands that when you put these boards together, it can't be about cronyism anymore. If we want to be performing, sports in itself is competition. It's about the best, becoming the best, competing with the best, and becoming the winners because of training, discipline, compliance, all the things that we don't like, and you have to be coachable. And those are things that are important to become a top athlete. And I told you off camera, my son did track and field. He was ranked number 2 in Florida for the AAU 200 meter at one point. And his coach was, his son plays NFL. But the one thing he always said, he said, if you have a mediocre athlete and you have an excellent athlete, but that excellent athlete is not coachable, you'll get a better athlete out of somebody who is coachable because they're willing to do the work and the discipline. And that's our society generally, Greg. That's what you met. It's not about the athletes, it's the
Hard work
leaders
beats
have to be coachable. They have to be open.
hard work beats talent when talent
Right.
doesn't work hard. That's the
Yeah.
metaphor that goes with that. And you are exactly right. What I propose requires hard work. It requires discipline and requires structure. If the minister is listening, we have myself and Kojak and others like Colin Turton and so on and so forth, and Max Gentle, we are out there actively looking for young people that fit the model and mold that will be successful. And we take them out of Belize and send them to where we can get them the proper training, like a
But
Norman Sutherland.
why take them out of Belize though? Why not
We don't have
bring
the
them up?
we
We
have
have it though.
we do not have the coaches in Belize for athletics
It
to
wouldn't
make
be
it happen.
cheaper to bring in coaches than
Of
to
course,
take them
of
out?
course, it would be. But our plan was, and I'm glad you asked that. Kojak and I had devised an entire plan. Everything was almost done to bring in three of the best coaches in Jamaica to Belize, and that was all nixed because of all of this foolishness within the association. Locke said they came to Belize in June, gave a symposium to teach the young athletes. They went and looked for houses, the whole 9 yards. Everything gone down the drain. No, with that being said, there are no coaches in Belize capable right now, today, of training an athlete to get to the NCAA. There is none. I'm telling you that no. There's not a single coach in Belize that is capable of coaching a young athlete to get to the NCAA. Why? An athlete may be super talented and could right out of the bush or yard or wherever they come from and go run a spectacular time. But that is not what they're recruiting in the NCAA. There's a thing called student athlete. You must have all the variables. You must know what it is to train and compete at a collegiate level before they even recruit you. So that's number one. So if there's nobody there teaching that, then how could you expect anybody to be recruited to that or be able to compete on an exceptional level? And if we had those type of coaches in Belize, why have they not produced anybody? Because you cannot tell me we don't got the talent. We have the talent. And I've always said this, if I, at some point in my life, in the next 5 to 10 years, I'll get an opportunity to go home to Belize where I can spend 6 or 8 months. And I can promise you, in 90 days, I will show you an exceptional level worth of talent from any school that I go to. It doesn't matter where. And I will show it to you because I know what I'm doing. And I've proven it time and time and time again. Not with just my son. My son is not the best athlete I've ever coached. Not even close. I coach kids that are training for the NFL Combine that are getting drafted tonight. They pay me to do their speed training. But yet, in our own little Belize, coaches like myself are pushed away. Why? Because we challenge the authority that's there.
Because with thin skin bad, I mean, I believe with thin, I don't know what it is, but I think part of it is we need to teach communication in Belize. And it's not only this board, you see it in the political parties, you see it in a lot of organizations, this inability to take criticism at the face level and evolve from criticism is something that is very difficult for us in society. That almost like somebody cut with at the core with so thin skin that we prefer to destroy something
That is correct.
rather than to reflect on the criticism and see whether or not the criticism is fair.
That is absolutely correct.
And I think that comes because in a country like Belize, we have a lot of teasing and bullying, but we don't have a lot of constructive discussions about how people become better because we always, and somebody pointed this out to me, in Belize, we promote the best. In other words, if you go to school, we are still at the valedictorian level. That means every student, we only pick one student and we celebrate that one student as the top student. But we don't do it overall like they do here, where if you get 4.0, you get one, we call it cum laude, lot of
Yeah.
whatever. But it's our structure. It's like we're always competing and we always are okay with praises, but we're not okay for criticism. Criticism is destructive to us, and well, a lot of times it comes from our system, our colonial system. Well, a lot of parents talk down to their children, or they cuss out their kids. And so when one another adult come to you and criticize you, I think there's an internal thing that causes us to fight back immediately instead of consider the criticism and grow from it. And I think that one serious issue in our society. I don't think that only this board. I think if you look at how a lot of boards operate, you'll find a lot of people join on to these things for the perception of prestige, but we not work towards one goal. We
Right.
just fight there, we just get appointed, but we are not goal oriented in okay, I'm here, and now my milestone is to reach to the next level. You come from a system now, even the Banda believes and Belizean roots, but because you're in the military and you do sports here, everything here is about creating milestones. So you start at point A, but you need to perform and show how you take something from point A to point B to where you want to go. How do we teach that? How do we deconstruct the way we communicate currently and we reconstruct how we communicate to get to excellence in these types of organization?
Right. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Uh, co- Constructive criticism and ownership, right? We have to own what we do, right? If we it doesn't matter what organization or discipline that you're involved with, the only thing that matters at the end of the day is the production, right? If you work at a bank and your job is to invest money and you always lose money, they won't fire you. You know, last, it doesn't matter. If we start treating our young athletes like an investment, they're the collateral, and we need to use them and invest them so that we can build them up. But if we're tearing them down, we have to be able to look at that. If it's what I'm doing, coaching and development wise, if what I'm doing is working and what you're doing is not working, it's not really that difficult. But because messaging to you hurts your feelings, you shut it all down at the expense of the young Belizean athletes. And I can't tell you how many young people in Belize right now I have given the opportunity to give scholarship to go to Jamaica or come with me. And I hear things like, oh, my cousin Ghana do that with somebody else, and I don't want to go to America and sleep on nobody coach. Like, you serious right now? How much you would rather stay in Belize in whatever situation you're in than come and get one opportunity to train with some of the best young athletes in America and or Jamaica, because you have people in Belize that are coaching there now, manipulating you to say no.
I've heard it in other sports too.
So instead of saying, yo, young man, you have the talent, better you go so you could try, better yourself, and then bring it back home when you come. No, man, stay right there. Coach Greg don't want nothing for you. We could do right same thing for you, knowing good damn well they can't do it and have not done it. So all those young people are still in Belize without the opportunity. The one that has recently, Darman Sutherland, is in Jamaica at 15 years old, has run 49.8 for 400 meters, which is the Belize under 15 or under 16 record. And he will continue to break records. I would argue to say he is our best young sprint athlete. And in by 28, he's going to be very close to making that Olympic time, just like Dimitri and Brooklyn. Regardless of what's happening in the association, it makes no difference, because once they represent Belize, so once they reach that height and level, there's nothing they could do to prevent them from competing in the Olympics. So even though these things are happening right now, my job, regardless of those people or the associations, is that I'm still going to continue doing the things that I do. I do not need their permission to do it. When I find a young athlete or somebody reaches out to me and says, Greg, I need you to come take a look at this young person, I jump on a plane and I go look. And if it works out, and in fact, Mr. Norman Sutherland, he was brought to my attention by the previous Minister of Sports, Mr. Ferguson, Honorable Minister Ferguson. And just because he told me didn't mean nothing to me. I said, I have to go see the young man. And I took a trip to Belize. I went down to Pomona Village to go visit him and his family. Got to meet the family, talk to the family, check out the man grades, look at his body type, watch him compete. And only then I made the decision to send him to Jamaica, right? But that's my job. That's what I continue to do. So with all the negativity and all this other stuff, yes, I believe the minister could step in and right this ship tomorrow. He has the authority to do so. And I'd be glad to reach out to him.
I feel, to me, this is how I feel, because I grew up playing sports, and sports, when you were growing up, you had to love it to play it, because you don't really get financial support or that type of stuff to even play it. And I don't never even know top athlete. But I feel sorry for these young people. This is just me when I see them. They go abroad, they currently form a team, they go abroad, and then they just devastate them abroad. And that's not only track and field, because it's track and field, it's soccer, it's everything, because what it shows the world is that we are not prepared, we are not trained, and we are not serious about sports. If every time Belize shows up to an event, we to come up with numbers that are horrendous, that's what it tells the world, that we're not serious about sports, that we're just participating, we're not competing. To me, the most shameful Olympics to date, that when it was the CARICOM Olympics and you see the whole frame of girls running, and they literally had to go back to the camera to go back to the Belize athlete that was all the way to the back. And that the rest of the girls already out of the frame, because we were that far behind. That to me is devastating to a young person, because the young person,
As well as, yeah, as well as the representation of one man showing up at the last Olympics and waving the Belizean flag, and not to demeanor the young Belizean athlete that represented Belize, but it shows right there, if you have one athlete that is coming to something, and sometimes we don't have no representation at all at games, absolutely none. The whole statistic here is for Belize as a nation performing in its sports, which is sports is a flagship for it. That has to change. And like Greg Myers is saying, we have the talent. And before him, those of Colin Turton, who have been a coach at the University of El Paso, Texas, and have contributed indirectly, without making any noise, to help uplift Belizean athletics. And he has contributed significantly to help develop athletes, just like you have developed athletes, Coach Myers. And he have done that for many, 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 many years, and have been able to produce significant athletes. People like Michael McCoy, the decathlon champion of Central America, who left Belize disenchanted, disillusioned. And my question is for you is, how do we keep our Belizean athletes, even those who have significantly, as you're talking about the young man from Pomona, who have significantly gone abroad, maybe Central America, the Caribbean, and maybe even to the United States, and have significantly done well, but have come home and has become disillusioned and then end up to leave anyway? What is there in that week that there could be said to or can be proposed to our Ministry of Sports. And we would hope that Minister Mala, as the Minister of Sports, who has just come aboard, has been elected as this new Minister of Sports. That how can that whole paradigm, that whole profile change? Because we have seen so many great athletes leave that country because I just saw something recently, Asafa Powell of Jamaica giving Jamaica hell because of saying that Jamaica has not done anything for its athletes, though its athletes have significantly been outstanding in the world, especially in track and field, Usain Bolt and all of them that apparently were ripped off by their own Jamaican government. But we don't even have to talk about Jamaica. We have our own country, Belize, that has to change that profile. Well, how do we have athletes say, I'm going to represent no Belize? I'm going to represent the country where I live right now because Belize don't have anything to offer me. How do we change that profile, Coach Greg Myers?
And before you answer, we have to take a break. And we'll come back and I think the next session we should talk about how we can change, or what are some of your ideas to uplift the system. And who knows, maybe write a proposal to the new minister who seems to be more open to elevating sports in Belize.
I'm locked and loaded, ready to answer the question.
Amandala is now online. You can now access Amandala's midweek and weekend issues online by logging on to our website at amandala.com.bz/news and joining our membership portal today. There's 5 easy steps to get unlimited access to weekly e-paper, archive publications, and a host of other exclusive contents. Number 1, go to Amandala's website. Number 2, navigate to subscribe areas. Number 3, choose a membership level. Number 4, check out using our secured portal. Number 5, log into the members only section. Telephone numbers 501-280-4703 or 202-4477. Fax us at 501-222-4702, or you could email at amandalapress@yahoo.com or amandalapress@gmail.com. Amandala, all power to the people.
I am proud to be a Belizean. I am a true born Belizean. Belize my home, my native land. I want you people to understand. I am proud to...
And greetings, we are back. This is Naval String Connections. I am Bilal Morris with my co-host and host live from out of Florida, ARIA Lightfoot, and I'm live out of my studio here in Los Angeles. We are speaking with Coach Greg Myers, talking about the recent ouster of his team, of his council from the Belize Athletic Association that has prepared some outstanding athletes. His own son himself, Dimitri Myers, that has represented Belize proudly at the Carifta Games over the last 2 years or 3 years, if Greg could make correction to that. But this year there is no Dimitri Myers because the believe that council that was ousted is no more. And I think that something like this, the new minister of sport must intervene to find out what happened there, because it appeared to be that this has been a significant wrong from hearing what you had just recently relayed to us, Greg Myers. And but again, the question that I had asked before we went to break is how can this profile that has tarnished Belize in the sporting arena, that has made Belize look very very bad and low, being that Belize have world class athletes over in the 70s that represented it in softball, that beat the great United States, right? Track athletes that like Colin Turton that represented, and Sonny Main and all these great track athletes. My own brother himself, the late Ernest Morris, who became a coach himself, that used to significantly tell me about all this corruption and thing that is in sports, why Belizean athletes are not developing, why sports is not developing in the country. But what are some of the things, Coach Greg Myers, that you can present to us that could hopefully change that negative profile that Belize have in the international sporting arena?
Well, I just want to clarify why Dimitri did not represent Belize at Carifta Games. And it leads to what are the things that we, myself and Kojak, were doing prior to make better change. Carifta was in Trinidad. On March 28th or 29th of this year, I got a letter from the individual still on the association saying that my son was selected to go to the Carifta Games. Travel to the Carifta Games was less than 2 weeks away. That is traveling. My son is still a minor. He cannot travel international without me. So the invitation was him with no logistics, no payments, no nothing. On top of that, the association owes me in excess of 16,000 Belize dollars, which they have not reimbursed me yet. And I wrote them a letter back responding saying that you must repay me my $16,000 before there's any further representation of my child anywhere. Because to buy a ticket to Trinidad 2 weeks before we're supposed to leave is over $1,000. For what? Accommodation, there is no accommodation anymore left in Trinidad 2 weeks before. So you're making an assertion. It's almost like a setup. How am I sending my son and I have no place to stay? And he has to travel with me. He's a minor. So, and I got no response back. Zero. To this day, I still not have gotten a response back from the persons at the association. Well, accountability, transparency, and doing things in accordance with the timelines given. April 7th, I get a text message from the General Secretary of Trinidad, which is my friend, Mr. Dexter Wilson, asking how come the final entries haven't been sent in yet. Not even my son, the entries themselves, which tells me they didn't send in any entries until the very last minute. We had one representee, Brooklyn Little, because her father paid for everything. When he gets if he gets reimbursed, that's a whole different topic. But I will not shovel more money into a situation. I have a family here. I've already got $16,000, which they have no intention of paying me back. that's into it already. So with that being said, how do we fix it? Well, if the minister's listening, the minister can step in, form a tribunal, and find out what happened to that $54,000. Where was it spent in the last from November to now? Where was that money spent? Because there was money budgeted in there to ensure that we had money to send 5 to 6 athletes to Carifta. No, we said none. Only one that went that paid for themselves. Now, with that being said, we have to be more foresighted, like I said earlier. And I'm just talking in terms of athletics, track and field. You know who you have. We know the athletes that have qualified already. You can't wait till 2 weeks before they decide, oh, we are trying to find the money and put them together. That don't happen. You know this months in advance. Somebody like Dimitri and Brooklyn, they're returning Carifta medalists. That was put in the budget from the year before that we need to have $6,000 for these two athletes because they for that. Why would you spend that money? So Sports Council has association is supposed to give an accounting of their money to the Sports Council every year. Ask me if the association has ever sent their accounting of money. Zero. So again, the minister has the authority to shut this down. If one another spend the money the right way, we want to shut down this association and put it under suspension, whatever, until it becomes compliant.
Quite so.
So they're required to audit. Are they? And I don't know. Are they required to file a report yearly? And are they supposed to be audited yearly?
That is correct. Every year, every association is to file an audited report with the Sports Council. So if we were just following the rules, it would shine a light. Why are we spending $17,000 to send a bunch of kids to a competition we don't have to send them to, when that $16,000 could have been spent to put us back on the stage to bring more light, and then know somebody like the minister, who is the minister of tourism, could get an opportunity to go to a competition to see our Belizean athletes compete at the highest level and see what sports tourism would do for Belize if we would only get out of our own ways. If we were able to, just like Minister Ferguson got to go sit in Grenada and be able to present a Carifta medal in front of the whole Caribbean and see this is the type of sports venue that we could build in Belize, right? And to say that is for sports tourism, because everybody would come to Belize. Every country would love to come to do an event. We don't even have enough hotel for that. So the amount of money you would have bringing up Belize just by putting in a hotel and the infrastructure to support such facility is immense. But when of our ministers are going to get an opportunity to go abroad, our athletes will compete on that level.
Have you ever written a proposal for, and I would recommend it, that you write a formal proposal to the Minister of Sports and give him a budget and see what he says, because I think a lot of us do complain and we know what the problems are, but I think that you have to formally hand over something with your expertise. You come with the right history. You have the history of athletes that you've trained, and maybe you could give him a proposal of how things could change.
And we had done that in the previous ministry, but for sake of this whole legal battles and whatnot, we had to put that on the side. We had a proposal.
Now there's a new minister. I think that maybe it should be revisited. I am solutions oriented. That's just me. I feel like every problem that Belize has is solvable because Belize is so tiny, and we just have to look at best practices in the world. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to come up with no bright Einstein idea. We just have to see what other people are doing and do it.
My proposal that I have several proposals we could put to the minister, but majority of those proposals, when it comes to athletics, need to be in conjunction with the association. right? Because what if I put a proposal to the minister that says the same proposal to bring in 3 top coaches that would also be coaching and helping the Ministry of Education develop a physical education system that would help support and develop young Belizean athletes from grade school, from primary school through secondary school. That was the initial plan, right? So that plan is put in complete. There's no way to accomplish that plan without the association being involved. No.
Well, amend the proposal and give the advice of how the board itself can be changed so that it becomes an effective board rather than just a board that's sitting there and creating problems. Give some suggestions of how the board can be more aligned to the success of the sport, how other boards operate worldwide. What are they doing to make sure that these athletes are the beneficiary of the type of training and budgeting, fundraising that has to take place?
The first thing that needs to happen, in my opinion, and I'd be more than willing to talk to the minister or anybody within the ministry about it, is that minister needs to form a tribunal to oversee and go back and look at what happened within the Belize Athletic Association, whether it was constitutional or not, and then make the corrections as necessary, because he has the authority to do that. If he does that, that is the first step. No, we can go back to trying to make sure that we have a cohesive association that can make sure that our athletes, whether in Belize or abroad, have the best possible opportunity to represent on the world stage, whether it's identifying and getting them out or getting the coaches and teachers into Belize. Jamaica has so many coaches that do not have some place to coach because they're in track and field is their world. So you have a lot of coaches that would jump over a mountain to get an opportunity to come to Belize and get assigned to a school and coach at that school. And the coach in Jamaica is better than the best coach in Belize at this point in time. So if we were to get somebody in, or several of them, those persons in to coach and teach in the schools, we would be doing a huge favor to our country. But it would start with the minister using the authority he has to form a tribunal to go look at the situation that has happened within this association. Also to go oversee why you haven't done any financial audits. Why you haven't put any in? Well, because it would shine a bright light on the amount of money that is missing, the amount of money that was misappropriated, and the amount of money that is spent on things that are not developing the sport.
In your opinion, what is a better structure for an organization? For example, you are saying that this is more like an administrative board. But in your experience with developing sports, what is a better organization you think could be used to, or a different system that could be used to develop the sport?
Well, the club system is the system that has universally within the Caribbean. So for us in Belize, it would be foolish to say that we can model ourselves on the American or British system. Right? School competition, high school competition. It's supported by AAU and clubs in America. In Jamaica, in the Caribbean, Jamaica is the standard bearer. Trinidad would be number 2, Bahamas would be number 3. In those areas, and then you can look no further than St. Lucia and Dominica, producing gold medalists from nothing, from 60,000 people and 30,000 people, right? Why are they successful? They're successful because their associations or federations are based on the club system. Incentivize the club system. So you incentivize formation of a club. Instead of the government to give money out to associations, give subsidies to people to start athletic clubs that promote competition. And those persons in the clubs are helped subsidized to run and host track meets and or tournaments, right?
Like
You
the
have the
quiz show.
AAU. If you want to take a model of something, take the AAU model. It is something that is transferable to Belize to include the insurance. You can,
And I believe that Jamaica and
that is
Trinidad
correct.
participate in
When
AAU because
club
my son.
champion, club nationals,
Yeah.
AAU club nationals in Jacksonville, Florida, July 8th to July 15th. I will be there with my team. And I have been encouraging people create an AAU club and bring their kids from Belize to go compete. And then they'll compete in their age group 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And at the young ages 9, 10, 11, 12, those ages, we should be exceptionally competitive in because there's no amount of training that's going to affect a young child like that. Yes, you get certain skills and so on and so forth, but your natural ability will shine. You give an opportunity to a young person from Belize to come up there at that age and compete with the likes of somebody like Quincy Wilson. Quincy Wilson at 8 and 9 years old was competing at AAU. He wasn't training hard, but then you grow up and says, I trained and I beat Quincy Wilson. No, you as you go into high school, this young man is now a junior, last year as a sophomore and a freshman. When they get to high school, I could compete with those kids. You give them hope. So you keep them in the club system and they keep training. And then hopefully you'll get a couple of coaches from Jamaica or America or someplace to come back and help you with those teams. And then you're gonna have the next question. Well, we need facilities. I am gonna call the biggest BS on the entire planet. Even here in Florida, my kids do not train on the track. In Jamaica, where do you think they train? You think they train on track? Absolutely not. They train on the grass field in front of the school. Only 3 high schools in Jamaica have track. And 2 of them are grass and or cinder track. So you don't need no track to be good at this sport. If you have a set of bleachers where you can run up and down on stairs and a grass field with 200 meters worth running, that's all you need. So when we say, oh, we don't got the facilities, it's an excuse. When they say, well, we don't got this, it's an excuse. Well, we don't got the best coaches? Okay, I'll give you that. But the coaches that are here that are willing to give it to you, you don't want to hear it. Even, Bilal had made mention of, we go to these competitions and we're all over the place and we're coming way in the back. Well, we have a team that's been coming to the pen relays from Stan Creek for 4 or 5 years. And consistently, they don't place any higher than 300 or 400 or 500th place. Now, while I applaud the young athletes for giving their effort to come out there, I question the adults and the persons there. If you haven't had the opportunity to go there and see what you're competing against, I personally have sent thousands of dollars worth of shoes to that school with not even a thank you, right? Not even a thank you. And then when I try and help them, they tell me, oh, we don't want your help. Introduce me to you. They say, oh, can you introduce me to Johan Blake? Maybe he can come and help coach us. You know what Johan Blake told them last year? Well, why are you asking me? And you have Coach Greg. Johan Blake knows who I am because I've helped write the St. Diego distance program for years. And he says, well,
Yes.
So, Coach Greg, this is my suggestion, and because I am solutions oriented, I understand the AAU system because my son went through it and he did track and field for probably 6 years. I think instead of doing a written proposal, I think it has to be like one proposal that is visual because when a lot of people not understand things if they don't really experience it. My suggestion to you would be invite the minister up in June or July when they're having that track and field meet, which I used to go to every year, hated it personally because my son did 100 and 200. So I was there from first thing in the morning till the last thing at night, just waiting for 2 meets or 3 meets or whatever. But it would be a good experience for making a city organization that's taking place. Yeah, especially in Florida, you see that in Florida, one lot of their counties not even rich. We did talk about poor people when they organize their track and field meets and
That is
it's
correct.
successful. The other thing when you expose them to that the age differences as you spoke about where you have all the 10 to 11-year-olds running together, it's age gap. And you're right, when they're young, it's natural talent. And as they get older, then you start to do form and different things that make them even more effective in running. So my suggestion is do like one leave video for show the different skill sets, how they develop their sports, invite them for come up there for be your guest at one of their sports meet and prepare them for the length of time because it's hot in Florida during that time. And even know why Florida run track and field during the hottest days of the month, but they do. You have see Jamaica they participate, you have see Trinidad participating. And yeah, give more a clearer picture to me because like even though you're explaining it, I could tell you they don't know what the heck you talk about. They don't understand they unless they've exposed to it personally, they don't understand that the same way that how they organize carnival, I believe. Because I think carnival are the big comparison where you have all their carnival teams that's competing for carnival day. And you could see in a Southside Belize, you have their major carnival teams they organize. That is same thing with track and field, that is same type of organization. We'll go out in their communities and that the parents are the one that are organizing their sports. I think now Belize have a lot of potential. You obviously have the love of the sport. You just need to align the love to somebody who is willing to make it happen. And you need for go talk to the new minister, wipe out bad, like wipe everything away. That was the past. And do I move forward? How do we move forward from here? And I think that's something that's worthwhile because nothing breaks crime to me. Nothing breaks idleness than sports. If their kids they out there they run, they play sports every single day, they have got less time for idleness and the competition will become positive. It will be one positive level competition rather than what we see today. We're at the point where we have to start wrapping up. And so, Bilal, if you have any final questions, and Greg Myers, if you have any final words.
I trumpet your solution based ideas are all the way because without solutions, sports in Belize is going to stay just as it is, and we have produced very good results in the past. There are so many great Belizean sports stories that I myself has written about. We have had outstanding athletes. We have produced excellent results before, world class results, and we can do it again. Why are we backing down in that? That this sort of quagmire, this sort of no going nowhere ness is the answers are there. We have to remove those obstacles, those barriers that are preventing us from doing that. And I do believe that Coach Greg Myers's council, when it was elected as a legitimate council, had produced results, has produced significant results. And I am for one to say that we need to bring that council back into being because it produced results rather than having councils that are sitting there that are not producing any results. And again, we have a new sports minister. Hopefully, it will be there is hope at the horizon. We have a new sports minister. Maybe things will be done differently. And I, for one, I'm also calling for a national audit of all these Belizean sports councils. A national audit, not done by them, but done by e- external forces, Belizean that is, that will come in and do a national audit. The whole Belize, entire ministries need a national audit. And that is my position in terms of being someone who has seen sports like you, Aria, as a substitute to crime, as an alternative to crime for young people. When Belize was doing so well in sports, nationally, regionally, and internationally, we did not have the kind of crime rate that we have amongst our young people. But that has disappeared.
Well, I tell you what, as you talk about crime rate, I have some preliminary. I'm going to give you something I want to talk to the minister about, and I'll keep this real brief. And I think I might be the only person capable of doing this. I want to go into the prison. Where else am I going to find young people that can't go nowhere, that I can ensure that I can train them every day? But if we could come up with a solution that says something like, for every week you stay in my training and I give a report saying you're doing X, Y, and Z, you get a day, or every month you stay and you get a day off your sentence or a week off your sentence or whatever the case may be. And maybe you find somebody within the prison system and that has a light sentence of 6 months or a year. You give me that person for a year, I can help transform his life. And you might find somebody in there that is exceptionally athletically talented but had nowhere to go in this police and got themselves into trouble for giving me an opportunity to train them. Could
Yeah,
be
but today guys run for police, they jump
Of
over
course.
there,
Yes,
fence
but
and everything. But
Greg and Aaron would add to that that the best athletes are locked up back there.
right. And see, for me, who else is crazy enough and or brave enough to go and do something like that? I have no problem with that. In fact, like Aria was saying, where I coach is not a very affluent area. The average income in my area is only about $35,000 or $40,000 US, which is pennies to live in America right now. And these kids are very underprivileged. Without structure and discipline, they're gone to the wind to the correctional system, right? So in Belize, I have an idea that I'm going to get ready to propose and put it all together. But I intend on going into the prison. If I can get the authority and the permission to do so, I'll spend 30 days, 60 days in Belize.
You have to get with our brother. We have to get with our producer of this show, Nur Mohammed, who has done tremendous good work amongst the prisoners, in the correctional institution there in Belize, and have produced significant results in in going in there and producing good results from those people. And I know Brother Nuri is listening to you, Greg, and we would hope that one day he would take up your proposal, your idea, and help you to get access to Belize's prison industrial complex, where a lot of these young men are. Yeah, the best footballers, the best 100 and 200 meter sprinters, the best basketball players, because they never had a chance to have been athletes. They got caught up in crime and was lost away.
Incentivize good behavior for your freedom.
Positive reinforcement, yes.
Positive reinforcement with somebody that gives a lot of strict and has a high standard of success, right? I think it could work.
And with that, we have to wrap up, guys. It's already past the hour. Thank you, Coach Greg. Drive safely. You have a couple hours left, I believe, to Philadelphia. So please drive safely and good luck to your athlete that you're driving up to support. And July, who knows, maybe I take a trip up there and check out the athletes if any Belizeans are participating. It's in Gainesville this year?
No, it's in Jacksonville.
Which is better because that's closer to me anyway.
Yeah, so and you will definitely have some Belizeans competing. This young man will be up here competing. My children will be competing, and I'm sure there are others around that will get in there.
Well, maybe we could get some Belizeans to drive up there to support them too. So with that being said, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. And this is Naval String Connections with our host, Bilal, and myself, Aria. Our producer is Noor Mohammed. XTV, giving us the opportunity to bring the diaspora to Belize. They have been the pioneers in that field. And of course, the listeners, viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, and Bilal.
Yes, and I want to just say again, Aria, too. Thanks to Harlan, our main technician, who has brought this show to us, help us to make the show possible. Our producer Nur Mohammed and XTV. This has been an XTV production. We will see you next week in another episode of Naval String Connections. Thank you, Belizeans across the Belizean diaspora who have tuned in and listened. Join us again for another excellent show next week. And again, we want to say thank you for watching.
I am a true Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born there.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born there.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them